Music from the Great Depression to the Second World War and the Atomic Age. You're listening to Out of the Attic on 91 FM, WSUP, Platteville.
In the summer of 1955, a motion picture was released called Blackboard Jungle. It starred Glenn Ford, Anne Francis, Sidney Poitier, and a bunch of other young upstarts in Hollywood. And they were looking for a song to be used in the film. And Glenn Ford had a young son who, thank God, was a friend and a fan of the Comets. He wasn't a friend until later, but he was 10 years old, and he bought all of our records. And he bought 13 Women and Only One Man in Town, took it home, and really flipped it over on the other side, and that's when he fell in love with Rock Around the Clock. He played it all the time in their home in Beverly Hills. And one evening while Glenn Ford and the director of Blackboard Jungle, his name was Richard Brooks, they were in Glenn's home talking about the movie. Peter Ford was playing Rock Around the Clock in his bedroom with the volume turned up, and Richard Brooks says, "My God, that's the song I want for this movie." So they found out who it was and made arrangements to buy the rights for the film. And they used it 3 times in the movie, the beginning, and they used it in the middle, and then again at the end. And Peter Ford tells a story about how his dad took him to a preview of the film Blackboard Jungle in Encino, California, near where they lived. They sat in the back of the theater, and when the film opened and Rock Around the Clock came on with those big stereophonic speakers, it just drove the kids in the audience wild. And some of them got up in the aisles and danced. And it was just mayhem was breaking loose. And that's what happened throughout the world, all over England. When the movie was shown, they got up in the aisles and danced and just had a great time. They felt that they'd been set free. That's kind of the story of Rock Around the Clock. It went on to sell about 80 million records. I visited with James Myers, who owned the song and who was co-writer and publisher of the song. And he told me about a week before he passed away that he had made $12 million off of Rock Around the Clock. And that's just one song. So when you have a song that sells that many, and it was been in motion pictures, about 50 films it's been in, and many television shows, so every time it gets used in one of those media movies and things, they get paid for that. But anyway, it's been, Rock Around the Clock has become the best-selling rock and roll song ever recorded, and I believe it's number 2 right behind Bing Crosby's White Christmas in total sales.
That's quite the accomplishment to be behind a song like that, too.
Yeah, it's quite a thrill for me to have been part of that recording of that great song and being in the history books about music. It's such a great honor for me, and I'm still rocking around the clock, by the way. 2 years ago, I left the Comets. We had a group for 20 years called the Original Comets. And I left those guys and went on my own. And I've been doing a single, working with a house band, singing Bill Haley's hits and having a good time. Just got back from a tour of England. And in 2 weeks, I'll leave on a 7-day cruise to the Eastern Caribbean, going out to Puerto Rico and St. Thomas. And then right after that, I'm flying up to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, to do an old Richard Nader rock and roll show, along with some of the other old rock and rollers, Joey D and the Starlighters, and Jay Black and the Americans, and a bunch of names like that, Tommy Morrow and the Crest. So we'll be on that show, and then I come back, have the Christmas holidays, and then next February 3rd, a thing called the Winter Dance Party in Clear Lake, Iowa, where Buddy Holly and the Big Bopper and Richie Valens left on their fatal airplane flight on February 3rd, 1959. Every year now they have a festival. And I'll be up there on Friday the 3rd, and on Saturday the 4th, Chuck Berry is going to be the headliner. So we're going to have a good time on the Winter Dance Party, the Buddy Holly Festival.
And I actually, I just got tickets for that, so I'm really looking forward. Yep,
You might be there, and we might get to see each other, and I'll shake your hand and hug your neck.
That's actually how I got the idea to contact you and a few other people. I spoke with Frank Maffei a few weeks back, and I've been trying to get in contact with a couple other, the original members of rock and roll, and it's been a lot of fun talking with a lot of you guys. You mentioned that the Comets got back together a little bit, and that reunion happened in about 1987, right?
1987. We got together to do a television show in Philadelphia. Dick Clark was being inducted into the Hall of Fame of Philadelphia, and they gave him a star on the street. And they did a big production. Dick Richards, the Comets' original drummer, was in the acting field and knew the producer of that show. And he said, Dick, do you think you could get the original Comets back together to do a couple of songs on this show? And Dick called all of us, and we said, yeah, let's do it. We were all in different fields and retired basically out of show business at that time. And Dick says, hell, we could rent us a hall that we can practice in, rehearse in, and just do a couple of songs and have a good time and have a little reunion. So we all agreed to do that. We went in, and after playing in the rehearsal hall for an hour or so, it started to come back. Our sound, we sounded just like Bill Haley and the Comets, 25 years earlier. So we went on the show, and we did 3 songs, and just broke them up, man. There was like 7,000 people in the hall, and there were about 60 different acts on the show. Chubby Checker was on, and Frankie Avalon, and all the people that had started their careers in the Philadelphia area were invited to be on that show. And but we kind of really tore them up. And we had a young attorney out of New York that was in the audience. And he came backstage and introduced himself, and his name was David Hirschberg. And David said, I got some friends over in England. Would you guys do a show if I can set up a concert for you over there? And we said, oh, hell yeah. We never thought he ever would. And here he comes a few months later, he calls us up and says, yeah, I got it all set, man. We got this, we got that, and the airfares and the hotels and the money and everything. So we said, okay, we'll go. And on the way over, my ex-wife said, don't you think you ought to learn those songs? I said, hell, there ain't going to be anybody there. Who the hell remembers Bill Haley and the Comets? Much to our surprise, we had 3,000 people show up to see us at this festival, and they paid like $50 a head to get in. And we were totally surprised, and we knocked them out at that show. And in the audience there was a promoter from Germany that said, hey, I'd like to book you guys in Germany and in Europe. And so we made a deal with him, and he booked us on a tour in Germany, and we started a whole new career. And for about 20 years, we went back and forth across the pond twice and sometimes 3 times a year to do tours and concerts in England and the European continent. And it's been a blast being part of that. But in 2009, I had a health problem. I had an aneurysm on my left leg, and I had my left leg removed just above the knee. So I'm walking around now with a prosthetic leg. And I left the Comets in 2009 because we had an internal conflict on the way the band should be run and how the kind of songs that we should do. And one of the other members wanted to kind of run the band, and I just didn't agree with it. And I said, well, I think it's probably time that we part ways. So I said at the end of 2009, I will go out on my own, and you guys just go on and get yourself a bass player and play the songs that you want to play. And so we all agreed, and that's the way it happened. And I'm still rocking around the clock. And they're kind of struggling a little bit to keep busy, and they want to work more than the work is available. They're in Branson, Missouri right now, and the work in Branson is a tough one because the economy, and there are so many shows to see. There's about 100 shows for people to choose from in Branson, Missouri. But the Comets threw their hat into that arena We played there for 4 years, 2 years at Andy Williams Theater and 2 years at Dick Clark's American Bandstand Theater. I think it was 3 years at Dick Clark's. But Branson is still going, and still a lot of people going there, but they're not spending money the way they used to. But I don't regret any decisions that I've made about my life. I just said, heck, I'm too old to put up with all this stress. So you guys take care and have a good time. So we parted in 2009. They don't want to work with me. And I told them, I said, I'll work with you anytime you guys want to get the old group back together.